the new Pixel 4 and 4 XL. Price-wise, we're looking at £670 or $800 for the regular 4 and £829 or $900 for the XL. As we expected, there are two new Pixel models. We've got the standard 4 and its bigger brother, the 4 XL. But let's see what we actually get in the box. And so if we do put the phone to one side for a second, even though that is that is a very interesting color, let's put that to one side. In the box itself, a few bits of paperwork, including a SIM ejector tool, a white USB-C to USB-C cable. We've got a full-size USB-A adapter, which goes into the USB-C port on the bottom of the phone. And this can be useful for transferring all your data from older phones. And finally, there's the plug adapter. This is of course the UK one. We've got the USB-C port on the back, and it's an 18-watt plug. So no super fast 30 or 40-watt fast charging that we see in some other phones. And that's actually it. There's no 3.5mm headphone adapter, there's no basic plastic case, there's not even any earphones in here, which seems a little bit cheap. Alright, so let's get to the good bit and actually talk about the phones. And straight away you can see the difference in size. The Pixel 4 here has a 5.7-inch screen versus 6.3 on its bigger brother, the XL. And that does make quite a big difference to the overall size. But what do you think in terms of design? We've got this matte finish on the back. So there are actually three colors, the white, the orange, and also a black, but the black version is glossy. So I think actually these two are probably the nicer colors. The ASO Orange is actually a limited edition version, so they won't be selling quite as many, and it is also limited to just 64 gigabytes. There's no 128 option for this. So I think for most people, maybe the white one is gonna be the best option. And you can also see we've got these contrasting power buttons. We've got this sort of lighter orange on the orange and just the same ASO Orange on the white. But it's a bit of a highlight for what is otherwise quite a simple design. Gone is that two-tone look of previous Pixels. Now it's just a single color, this matte glass. And of course with this new square camera module up top, where we've got two lenses. You'll also notice on both phones that the rear fingerprint reader has gone. It used to be here. There is no longer a fingerprint reader. Instead, Google is focusing all its efforts on the face unlocking, which we'll talk about in a second. We've also got this metal aluminium band around the outside. It's a matte black color, which not only gives it a bit of a nice contrast to the color on the back, but it just helps it feel quite comfortable to hold. Even this bigger phone, it's not particularly slippery. It doesn't feel too fragile actually. And also with these matte finishes, it doesn't pick up any fingerprints or smudges at all. So even with my sweaty fingers, it still looks just as good as when I took it out of the box. On the bottom, we've got the USB-C port, one downward firing speaker, and also a microphone. And then on top, we've got a whole load of different sensors in here, which I'll talk about in a second, along with an earpiece, which acts as a second speaker, so we do still have dual stereo speakers. The left side has the SIM card tray, which is still a single 4G SIM. There's no dual SIM or 5G option, unfortunately. Nothing on the top, and on the side, we've got the volume and the power button. I must admit, I do quite like the look of it. It's definitely a step up from last year, particularly on the XL. Gone is that horrible notch, which I must admit was really, really ugly last year. Now we just get quite a big forehead bezel. So while this sort of asymmetrical design won't be to everyone's taste, at least Google are actually putting this bezel to good use. So let's get the specs out of the way first, because Google aren't really putting that much emphasis on those. We've got the new Snapdragon 855, along with 6 gigs of RAM, that's up from 4 on the Pixel 3, and at the 64 or 128 gigs of storage. So not an awful lot of storage, no micro SD or anything like that, but to mitigate that slightly, you do get 3 months free of Google's cloud storage backup up to 100 gigabytes. After those 3 months, it is $2 a month, or you can get 15 gigs for free. But I do still think 64 gigs is a little bit stingy. In terms of the difference between the 4 and the 4 XL, well, obviously the biggest one is the screen size, 5.7 versus 6.3. The bigger one also has a higher resolution, it's Quad HD Plus versus Full HD Plus, so the XL is a little bit sharper. And also the battery is a fair bit bigger on the XL, and while it does obviously have a bigger screen, I think we will see a longer battery life with this. So battery size, screen size, and resolution. That's pretty much the only difference between the two phones, of course, other than the price. So if I put the regular 4 to one side for a second and concentrate on the XL, let me show you. So with that, we get a few new features, including the built-in dark theme, which I'm a big fan of, and actually will help save a little bit of battery. Now, while we are talking about the software, one of my favorite new features are the improved gestures, because previously on the Pixel 3 on Android 9, you had that horrible little pill thing and back button, which really didn't improve the nav bar bar at all. So now by default, it's a swipe in from either side to go back, swipe up from the bottom to go home, hold it to get recently used app, and you can swipe up from the corner to get the Google Assistant. Or of course you can squeeze it and that'll do the same thing. The Tech Chat on YouTube. So this new and improved Google Assistant, which is fully baked into the phone, whereas previously it would have just taken you to the app, now I can actually search for keywords within it. Now before we get to the camera, let me run you through the new motion sensing technology, because Google have actually built in a kind of radar in the Pixel 4. It's based on Google's Project Soli, and it can do a bunch of things, but let me start by showing you how it helps with face unlocking. So if I turn it off, look what happens to the screen when I go to reach for it. It detects that I'm picking it up, it fires up the face unlocker camera, and then straight away I'm in the phone. So you can actually unlock the phone instantly without pressing any buttons, it just does it automatically. And so far it seems to be really reliable actually. And that's because of this new motion sensing camera, which works in all lighting and it has a 180-degree field of view. And that's part of this ambient display, which will also detect if you're walking away from the phone, and so will then dim the screen, again to help save battery. You also have things like quick gestures where you can swipe around to skip songs and pause them and stop alarms and phone calls and things, but arguably they're a little bit more gimmicky. And the good news is, if you're not much of a fan of all this, you can easily turn it off. So I've kept you guys waiting long enough. Let's have a look at the new Pixel 4 camera. So the first thing you'll probably notice is this new horizon line, which tells you if the phone is straight or not. So when I get it back there, 0 degrees, we can get a nice and straight photo. Now the main 12 megapixel lens is pretty much the same as before, but we do now get a 2x telephoto, but we can actually go more than 2 times because this uses Google's new Super Res Zoom, even zooming in all the way up to 8 times. You'll also notice how what you see in the viewfinder is pretty much exactly what you end up getting in the final photo. That's because Google have incorporated live HDR+ into the viewfinder, so you see pretty much exactly what you get at the end. You don't have to wait for it to process and for all the colors to pop and all the HDR to come in. You now see that live, so you can better compose the photo. I think the biggest camera upgrade though is the new dual exposure, something pro photographers will be familiar with. Using the new sliders in the camera app, you can expose the foreground separately to the background. So essentially we've got separate sliders for brightness and shadows, and it's all done live in the viewfinder. It's such an awesome new feature and I can't wait to test this out properly. The Pixel's famous night sight has also had a bit of an upgrade, with Google focusing on improving the colors and making it more true to life.